Hi, I'm Billy Turriff, full-time property investor and founder of Kensington Finance. Typically, the videos I share with you kind of focus on technical elements relating to property, but what I also wanted to do was share with you some of the softer skills I've put in place to really help my business run effectively and efficiently as possible. One of the key things that I do and deliberately actually schedule time out to is to plan. Um, and let me tell you about planning. There's kind of 5 reasons to me that you really need to focus on planning. First off is time is a finite resource. We don't get any more of it. And you want to be able to make sure that you're spending the time that you've got on the earth doing the stuff that you enjoy and that gives you the most value. So maximizing your time is key. Secondly, if you don't plan, you're not going to know where you're going to go. So you can't use a sat nav unless you can put in the postcode. But also the flip side of that is what you want to be careful is where you're expending your energy and you're focusing on is the right place. So sometimes in life we end up spending a lot of time in something and effectively putting a ladder up against the wrong wall. And it's appropriate just to look at where you are in life and make sure that what you're spending your energy and time on is the things that are important to you. Third, I started to run my own business. One of the key reasons was because I wanted my freedom. I wanted to be able to kind of dictate when I work and when I go on holiday, when I do social things. The reality is, by actually bringing more structure into your life and more structure into your kind of business operations, that enables you to maintain your freedom. Once you can actually get holidays booked, you can get activities for your work booked, you can know what your downtime is. When you've actually got a structured process in place, it actually gives you more freedom than trying to have to do everything last minute and getting caught on the hop. Fourth, ultimately, to do stuff in business, there's a number of resources that you're going to need. So whether that is going to be financial resources, whether it's going to be staffing resources, whether it's going to be infrastructure such as offices, new systems and processes. Again, if you actually know where you're going each quarter and each year, you can know what those requirements are and you can plan for them. And then finally, the key thing that planning enables you to do is actually work out what you want to say no to. And that's one of the key things, I think, in your personal life and actually in business life. There's too many opportunities out there. Unfortunately, you're not going to be able to do all of them. I'm a very firm believer you're better doing 1 or 2 things really well and deep rather than trying to do 20 things and not getting into them deep at all. So when I'm doing my planning, there's kind of really 3 different phases I look at. There's kind of what I call my visionary planning, and that's a 5-year plan. And I update that every year, but it's looking far out there into to the vision, the goals I want to achieve, but they're quite aspirational. I then have a very strategic slash operational annual plan that I do each year. And then in terms of being able to execute against that annual plan, I have quarterly themes and then weekly checklists that I work against. The other thing I would say is when I plan, because I operate as an investor and I deliberately blend my business and personal life together, there's certain key themes that I would look at. So I'd have stuff in my plan that relates to work. I have stuff in my plan that relates to family, friends, stuff relating to experiences, hobbies, what rewards I'm going to get if certain things are done, and also certain goals for my health. And whilst I would say to you that everyone is unique, but almost everyone I've worked with, typically when they have kind of goals and aspirations they want to plan against, they're typically against those themes, so they can be a great place to start. Okay, so for visionary planning, I typically take a period of 5 years, and I do that because it's far enough out there to be aspirational to me, but I also feel it's close enough that I can see that I'm building towards it. When I started to come up with 5-year plans, I actually found it quite challenging because I kind of thought, well, relatively comfortable now, most things are so, what would I really want to change dramatically in 5 years? And one of the ways I could do that was by actually looking back 5 years. And so what I do is when I'm setting my 5-year goals and plans, I actually where I was 5 years ago in each of those areas. So if I take that, for example, say my own personal residence. So 5 years ago, I was actually renting an apartment, so I didn't own my own house. Now I actually own my own house, but it's not my dream home. I would rather have a bigger home, more gadgets, etc. But the reality is, I'm not going to go out and buy another house next year. But what that enables me to do is kind of think, okay, what do I want to get in 5 years' time? But also, I then don't just park it. What I actually then think about is, okay, what am I going to do the next year to get that? And for me, the next year in my own house is actually getting it refurbed, getting it designed how I want to do it. But I know the following year, then it would still be too early for me to move. It would be about then kind of visioning what the new house would be, kind of sketching it out in my journal. And the important thing about that is the reality is once everyone achieves all their goals, it really is that phrase that it's actually you want to enjoy the journey rather than just hit things at the end. Most things actually become an anticlimax. Other examples of how you can use the kind of 5-year looking back the way. So I look at what my balance sheet was on an annual basis. So I've got it tracked from where it was 5 years ago to what it is now. And then I have a target, again, for what I want it to be in 5 years forward. And it doesn't have to always be increasing by the same amount. You might grow to a certain level, and then you might actually just want to increase your wealth by 10, 20% per year. But again, you can get a process in place to do that. If I think of maybe what I've done in terms of kind of health, 5 years ago I wasn't running at all. This year I've got targets to do 365 kilometers in the year, and when I look forward to that in 5 years, it might be to have completed 100 marathons. Lots of people talk about wanting to do things for charity, and one of the challenges I have with some people is they'll say, I want to donate £1 million to charity, and I want to pay the sponsorship for a kid to go to school. And they're all great things to do, but one of the things that actually says, well, what are you doing now? And you don't have to wait till you get to £1 million before you can actually make a donation. If that's what your long-term target is, fine. But then what are you doing in 2020? What are you doing in 2021? What are you doing in 2022? So actually putting initiatives in place each year that will help you get there. So again, summary of just 5 years, you want it to be visionary, you want it to be big picture. Be aware that a good way to help you if you're struggling to visualize that is to kind of reflect on the journey you've already been from, and then I think you'll be pleasantly surprised by what you've done in that time period, and it will make it relatively, I think, easy then for you to set your 5-year goal. But there's also no point in just setting a 5-year goal and forgetting about it. Think about then what are the activities, the items you can do now and the next year that'll start to get you towards that. And that then really takes us on to the what I call my annual business/operational plan I set each year. So I run with what I call a 12-month business/operational plan each year. So I've said before, because I really enjoy what I do, and I don't really see a division between my kind of work and personal life, because I also just find it too complicated to manage different diaries and different plans. I integrate it all together. And I put this together out each year. It's just a small PowerPoint presentation. My ex-consultants probably couldn't get away from PowerPoint presentation. But again, I've tried, before I had quite a long Word document, and I found that was kind of just got too long, too much kind of detail, and you kind of missed some of the areas. I wanted to get this so it was a live document and would help me in terms of kind of driving what I wanted to do on a 12-month period. So in it, I've got key themes. So those themes that I'll typically have will be what I actually want to do in the business. So an example of that for the business will be to increase the profitability of the buy to hold business by X%. For the loan business will be to have a loan book in 6 figures with a profitability of Y%. In terms of health, it may be to have a target to run X races during the year. So have a number of key themes, and then I have the targets next to them. I then kind of think about, well, okay, how am I going to actually track that? So again, if you think of that, so I've got zero, that produces my monthly P&L accounts. My actual balance sheet gets produced by my accountant at year end. In terms of kind of the health, the races I'm running, I've just got a white chart, and I just tick them against that. And that's the other thing, I'm not suggesting that you need to go and create very detailed dashboards. Ultimately, you need to have dashboards and tracking mechanisms that is right for you and your business. But my belief is you put them in as you need them, rather than trying to design something for something that may come. The other thing that I use this kind of plan for is my actual distribution focus. So again, when you think of those key themes that are important, so in me personally, spending time with my son is spending time with kind of family and friends, and then doing work activities. And when I'm actually planning out my year as part of this, so I've got a PowerPoint presentation, but then I've actually got a 12-month diary that I use, and it's more by saying, okay, this day I'm with Archie, this day I'm in the office, this is a social day, etc. I look to plan that out at a 12-month period, and then I'll talk to you later on. I update it every month, but have a rolling 12-month plan, so you're kind of clear that you're distributing your focus how you want to. And the simple rule I have is I look at what's important in my life, and what's important in my life is what gets entered into the diary first, and then you keep doing it, and then once it's full, it's full, but you've then got it in your priority. Another thing I would say with that is, I also do deliberately put time in that is maybe like catch-up time. So I'll do that for work. So I'll say kind of half a day that is just catch-up. So it's not actually planned with specific elements or tasks. And I can use that to catch up, because everything takes longer than what you think. And I'll also have time just for me. So again, if I actually want to have a day off work, or I want to have a weekend by myself, I can be quite introverted. So I kind of like to have time for me to kind of relax and kind of protect my own energy. So putting some of that stuff in there as well. It's not about just filling it up with a whole lot of activities and stuff to do. Working out where your quiet time or your catch-up time is important. The other thing that I use it for in terms of my distribution of focus, again, I mentioned before in this video, I would rather do a couple of things and do them well, rather than try and do lots of things and kind of not be deep into any of them. And when I'm looking at my business, I kind of break things into three areas. So my buy to hold is my key business. That takes up 70% of my time. My mentoring and coaching is my kind of second core business. That takes up 20% of my time. And my Kensington Finance lending business takes up 10% of my time. And that's also where they are in terms of importance to the kind of business I'm creating. So the point that I know that I've got a split between 70, 20 and 10, again, I can mark those out in my diary quite easily. So 3 days, for example, on buy to hold, 1.5 days on mentoring, and half a day on Kensington Finance. And then finally what I do is your year isn't the same month from month. It's like external. It goes in seasons. So I look at each quarter, and I look at what my theme will be for that. And if I think of the year I'm in currently, my first quarter was about doing the foundations, actually the foundations for the business model that we've now got in place, testing certain scenarios, making sure it's kind of comfortable with where it was going. My second quarter I branded Crossing the Desert. That's because that comes into our summer period. It's when all our students move in and out of their houses. We typically get less rents coming in because they're in half rents. We've got more rents to pay out. I also knew from planning we're going to be doing some acquisitions. So that was a period of real kind of execution of work. My third quarter is about doing more with less. And that's about, again, I've got no aim to create a huge empire, but what I want to do is maximize what I've got, both from a business and a personal perspective. And then my fourth quarter is about kind of a growth spurt. So when we'll be back in the market making extra acquisitions. And it's important to think of one, how your year will either play out, and you can do it actually by the seasons themselves, or you may have to do it specifically to your business. So as I say, because I've got a lot of student houses, I have a large handover period in that kind of July to September, a lot of maintenance stuff to be done. So I don't really want to be doing lots of other work activities then. Also brand it because it gets you into the gamify, so it makes you know what your focus is for that quarter, and it actually brings it to life for you. So again, you're not just thinking about it's a Gantt chart, it's a list of activities to do. You've actually got a brand and you've got a theme that you're focusing on. So to make the most out of your kind of quarter that you have, what I actually do as the quarter I'm in is coming to an end, I book myself 2 days out of the office so I can get no distractions and pure prime time to actually focus on what I would need to do in the next 13 weeks. But again, I spent a bit of time actually just reflecting on the last quarter, what I enjoyed, what worked well, what didn't work so well. Is there any processes or systems that I need to fix so when I get into that quarter again, I don't run into some of the same problems I did this year. And then let me kind of talk you through the example of crossing the desert. So we had 5 key areas. We had our whole student transition. That was filled with a whole lot of sub-elements from kind of cleans to maintenance work to deposit returns. There's again, so making sure the agents were on the ball with that. The staff that I had were on the ball with that. I was there to kind of review and approve stuff as accordingly. We also had some development sales going on in Plymouth, so making sure that I was chasing the agents every week, getting reports for them, seeing how we were doing against sales for that. Certain marketing activities that I wanted to do from a business is really around kind of brand awareness. We had a couple of acquisitions that they were doing, so at a personal level and also a mixed use development. And then I had some problem areas. So I had some tenants that hadn't paid, and I had a legal agreement that was causing problems. So it's kind of 5 chunky areas, and then you add those sub bullet points under it. Could then have detailed plans for them. A lot of the times you can delegate it to other people. You may get other people to work with you, or you may just have to do it yourself. But all of a sudden, have those 5 quarters, get them up on a whiteboard. Sorry, have those 5 areas, get them up on a whiteboard, and then I'm very clear that that's what I'm working to. And if nothing else, it's just reminding me because it's in front of me. But also, and most importantly, it then enables me to know what I can say no to. So when someone says, "Oh, would you come and see this deal with me, or would you be interested in making this acquisition?" It's kind of like, no, that's not part of my quarterly theme. It's not been listed as part of that 2 days. So this is what I was really talking about before. Actually having more structure and more plan will actually give you more freedom because you're not then getting pulled and twisted different ways. You start to become effective and efficient with your own time. What I also find is really doing it on a 13-week period is really how, if you want to see I think there's been research done on it, it's 13 weeks that is the kind of the ultimate time period to be able to execute against. Having 5-year plans, 10-year plans, I say they can be quite visionary, they can be quite motivational, they can actually be quite hard to execute against. What you want to be able to do is then kind of break it down. And I think 13 weeks from research is kind of the key area that people have to break against it. And then so you then come from, so again, you've got this 13-week plan. How do I actually execute that on a kind of a week-by-week basis? So my diary's out for the 13 weeks, so there's certain things for each of those areas that's in the diary and that's penciled out. And then it's simply a case of doing a to-do list and I do mine on Sunday night, do quite a large to-do list of stuff that has to be done against each of those plans, work out again, who's doing that stuff, and then just tracking it on a week basis. Hopefully you've got 70-80% of your items off because your to-do list never finishes. Great, they've gone. And then you start on the following Sunday with a clean sheet again. Any items that need to be carried forward, put them there, and then list your other items against it. So planning in itself isn't rocket science, but I think that phrase, fail to prepare, prepare to fail. It's an item a lot of us don't do, particularly people who run their own business would much rather be going out talking about new business opportunities, doing deals, than actually taking some time back and actually making sure we've got some structure in place. It's a skill set I've had to evolve in over the last couple of years. It's not something I enjoy doing, but I recognize the value of it, and I also recognize the business and my personal life gets held back if I don't do it. Each person, tweak it as it best suits yours. As I say, the way I do it is I look at a 5-year period, I look at a 1-year period, I look at a quarterly period within years, and then weekly plans. And I keep them live and I keep them evolving. Hope that's helpful to you, giving you some kind of insights to what I do, but also maybe giving you some plans about how you could get better at planning yourself. As I said before, I find that the process evolves, and I'll change it bit year from year. As I said before, it's quite a detailed Word document. Now much prefer a short PowerPoint presentation. Key thing is to use tools, techniques, and tips that work for you, and then makes the process live. Again, there's no point in having a great plan if you're not actually taking action and you're not executing against it. If you've got any tips or suggestions on how you actually plan and organise your time, please feel free to drop them below. Thanks for listening.